Hi, my name is Lily and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be talking to you about 10 Muslim books that I really want to read soon. So this is by no means an exhaustive list, this is just 10 books at the top of my Muslim TBR basically, or 10 Muslim books at the top of my TBR. So there are so many more that I want to read outside of this list, but these are 10 that I wanted to speak to you about. And I thought I'd speak to you about them now because we are entering into Eid and the end of Ramadan, so I thought it would be appropriate. This will be a mixture of books I already have on my physical TBR, books on my wish list, and books just that I've heard about and really want to read, so some I'll be holding up and others I won't be. The first book is a book that is on my physical TBR, but I couldn't find it because it's a bit chaotic at the moment, and that is City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is a adult / older young adult fantasy set in a Middle Eastern world. I'm not sure if it's ever specified which country or if it's like a imaginary one, but either way it's like Middle Eastern inspired. In this one, our main character is a con woman. She is basically pretending to have magic and to do things like palm readings and stuff like that to earn money because she's an orphan on the streets. But one day she accidentally summons a really powerful jinn, and when he appears he says that she clearly has some magic and takes her to the magical land of the City of Brass, where she suddenly becomes embroiled in this mixture of power and politics. So the reason I want to read this is because I've heard some really amazing things about it, and the cover, beautiful, the reviews, amazing, so I definitely want to read this one soon. I'm not sure how much I'm going to like it because it sounds like it could be quite political, and I do struggle with political fantasies, but I definitely want to give it a go anyway. Next is another one that's been on my physical TBR for a really long time, and I just haven't read it because I've been a bit intimidated, and that is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. This is set in Afghanistan against the backdrop of the last 30 years of its kind of difficult history, and it tells a story of two boys who have become friends despite the fact that they shouldn't have. One is a very wealthy boy and the other is the son of the wealthy boy's servant. And it tells how their story develops and how they are both affected by war and devastation and destruction happening in Afghanistan. This is kind of considered to be a modern classic, so of course I really want to read it because I think it's very important and it will tell me and educate me a lot about what could be happening to people over in Afghanistan. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting read, but also a very difficult read, which is why I've been putting it off for so long, but I definitely will read it someday, and I am just so excited to read it because I really do think it's going to be a great experience. Next, I would like to read Other Words for Home by Jasmine Warger. This is a middle grade and it's a contemporary. It's about a young girl named Jude and her mother who are forced to flee Syria and move to America to live with their family because of the war happening, but they have to leave behind her brother and her father. And it's about Jude learning to adapt to American life and how fast-paced it is, and also trying to integrate into her school and try to still be herself whilst also getting to be a part of American society. And she starts to try and do things like joining the school musical. And it sounds like it's going to be really sweet and eye-opening about what it's like to emigrate and to kind of be a refugee in the times that we are having at the moment, and especially as a child. I've heard some really great things about this one, so I am very much looking forward to reading it. Very high up on my wish list, so hopefully I will get to this one really soon. Next is A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahira Mafi. This is the same author who wrote the Shatter Me series, so if you like that, definitely listen to this one. This is a contemporary and it's about a young teenager called Shirin. She's 16 years old and it's set just a year after 9/11. She is struggling a lot with being constantly abused in public and being stereotyped and just mistreated because she's Muslim, because she is not white, and because she wears a hijab. So because of this, she's put up a lot of walls and defences, and she's only really herself around her family. But then one day she meets a boy and she starts to like him and he shows an interest, but she isn't sure she can let her walls down around him. This sounds amazing because I think we get to hear a lot about just the side of the oppression and the anger and the mistreatment people face, but we don't often get to see how people still try to fall in love and live their lives despite it. So this will be a really interesting different side of the story that I haven't seen before very well, and I'm very interested in what happens, because I was very young around the time of 9/11, so I was not aware. Like 9/11 happened and I think I was 3, so of course I had no awareness of what was happening to Muslim people and people of colour around that time. So it'd be really interesting for me to read about what it was like to live back then and how people adapted their lives and what struggles they had to face. I also want to read The Love and Lies of Rakshana Ali. This one is by Sabina Khan. So this is a female-female romance, kind of, but it's not really. It has a sapphic protagonist. I'm not sure if she's labelled as any particular flavour of sapphic because I haven't read it yet. But basically this one tells the story of Rakshana Ali, who is in a very conservative Muslim family, but secretly she is sapphic and has a girlfriend. And then when her family finds out, they decide to send her back to Bangladesh, I believe, to have an arranged marriage. And it's about her trying to deal with what's happening to her, and it sounds very interesting. I had some Bangladeshi friends when I was in school, and I saw a lot of the strict parenting, but I also saw a lot of Bangladeshi parents that were very liberal. So I'm really interested to see how her parents are characterised and the experiences she has, and I'm also interested to see what the arranged marriage experience is like, because I don't think you get many YA books that talk about that. So yeah, I'm quite intrigued. I've heard this one is very, very good as well. Next, I'd like to read Love from A to Z. This is a young adult contemporary romance, and it tells a story of Adam and Zainab. Zainab lives in America and she is the only Muslim in her class, and her teacher likes to reiterate all the time how bad Muslims are. And when she finally stands up to him, he basically gets her suspended and starts to investigate her and all of her friends. She decides to go and spend spring break over in Qatar with her aunt, and to try and become a new, nicer, quieter person so that she can fit in when she goes back to America. But while she's in Qatar, she meets Adam. Adam has just been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and has just dropped out of school, so he can try and recreate things his mother used to do before she died for his little sister, but he's also keeping his diagnosis a secret from his father. They meet and discover they're both pretending to be different people for others, and kind of bond over that. And this sounds really interesting because, I don't know, I think it's a very interesting take, and I'm really interested to see if they discover that they should be themselves, because I really hope that's the message of the book. And also it sounds like a very interesting romance because you have two very kind of unusual protagonists, and I also like the idea of it being set in Qatar because I don't think I've read a book set in Qatar yet, and I'd really like to see how that is and like the different experiences they have over there. So yeah, I'm very, very excited to read this book. Next is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal. This is a YA fantasy set in what I believe is a Middle Eastern inspired fantasy world. This tells the story of Zafira, who is a hunter who disguises herself as a man so that she can feed her village without being dismissed. And then there's also, can I remember the prince's name? No, I cannot. But there's also a prince who is kind of known to kill all of his father, the Sultan's enemies. And there is this magical threat growing, and so Zafira goes to try and find a magical artifact that can help stop this magical threat. But the prince is also sent to find this artifact and to eliminate the hunter. And of course, there's going to be things ensuing. This one sounds really good. I love a YA fantasy, and I think it's going to be a good enemies to lovers romance, although I'm not a big fan of enemies to lovers, but it can work sometimes. And yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting because they're both kind of hiding secrets. Like Zafira is hiding the fact that she's a girl, and then the prince is hiding the fact that actually he is compassionate and is not just this evil robot human. So yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be really good, and it's the first book in a series, so we love that. Next is Internment by Samira Ahmed. I did enjoy Samira Ahmed's first book, Love, Hate and Other Filters, so I'm intrigued to see what her next book is. This is a near future dystopia which is based on the policies that Trump's administration was bringing in, and basically it's a near future where all of the Muslims in America are rounded up and put into internment camps, much like the Japanese Americans were during World War II. And this one follows our main character, who has been put into one of these internment camps, who is starting to build a resistance and campaign for their freedom. I think this is going to be a really interesting read because I think if Trump had stayed in power, this could have been a route that America went down. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the future a Western country does start doing this, because the hostility towards Muslims is not good right now. So yeah, I think it's a really important read, and I don't think it's too unrealistic for a near dystopia. And also I think Samira Ahmed is a really good writer, and I think her characters are always very relatable and very intriguing, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one. And the final book on this list is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. Of course, this is very popular on BookTube, so you likely will have heard better summaries than the one I'm about to give you, but if you haven't heard a summary yet, this one is about Laia and Elias. I was thinking Elias, but I was like, no, Laia and Elias is too similar, but apparently no, that is the names. So Laia is So Laia is living with her grandparents and her brother is arrested for treason, so she agrees to go undercover for the rebels and spy in the military academy in this Roman-inspired world so that they will rescue her brother. And while she's in the military academy, she meets their like top soldier, Elias. And that's about as much as I can remember from the summary, because it was quite a complicated summary. But this is interesting, because I don't think I've read a Roman-inspired fantasy world, but I've heard this one's really good. This is apparently a very popular series, so I really want to try the first one. Again, I'm not sure if I'm going to love it because it sounds like it could be quite political, but I'm really interested to give it a go. So those are 10 Muslim books that I would like to read soon. If any of these are on your TBR, let me know, and please do give me any more recommendations you have down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to see more content from me. If you would like to leave me a comment but you don't know what to say, leave me a little moon emoji. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!